that so fast just so you can get to the cores.
It's Miller time, and welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devon Decker, and joining me, Sejan Sarowick. Sejan?
Freaking out over here, man.
Why are you freaking out? Because you didn't know. You don't know when we're recording, man.
No, I never do. I just kind of have to depend on you to be honest and open with me,
Well,
which we all know never is going to happen.
I gave you a choice, and you made the choice that made me think, well, I need to start now because it's Miller time. I'm having a Miller High Life, and that's good. That's a good thing for me to start this last episode of 2019 with, because Sejan, I have a real question for you. Like a serious, like face-numbing, mind-tingling inquiry for you.
Miller High Life, the beer of serious conversation. Yeah, what's up? What's going on?
Is this how people who have played Final Fantasy VII feel all the time? is this just this like desire for it to come out with better graphics like right now, and like I kind of gotta play it again? Like I imagine this is what drugs are like.
Yeah, right. You got your first taste, and now it's not free. But there's definitely a feeling of wanting more. That, I mean, like that's been part of the ecosystem for a long time, man. You got to watch Advent Children now. You got to get real deep into it.
Advent Children.
You gotta like.
I saw that. I worked at Hollywood Video when it came out, so I got an advance copy, and we had a screening at one of the places we used to hang out in Western Coventry. Notice how I'm avoiding names to protect the innocent. That Advent Children has the best moment in video game adaptations ever, and that is when they beat the guy and the victory music plays, and it's just a cell phone ringtone. It's incredible. It's like one of the most incredible things ever.
Nice.
So not gonna. I accomplished the arbitrary goal I assigned to myself and beat 200 unique video games this year, 2019, and at the urging of Sejan, I made the last one count.
At the urging of me, yeah.
Well,
because I was just riding your ass about it.
No, you were just like, I feel like your 200th game should matter.
Right. It was more like I just kind of assumed that you had already picked something that was going to be important for 200. I didn't realize it was going to be I didn't want to force your hand into anything, but I'm kind of glad I did after a while.
Dude, I am. Because here's the thing. I would have never played Final Fantasy VII, ever, if not at the urging of Sejan. So thank you to Sejan for that. And I also was just like...
Year 2019, Final Fantasy VII.
22 years later, baby. And honestly, I was like I was writing off the remake because of the combat, like just the combat. But the chance to experience that story with 22 years for them to like better translate the Japanese and, maybe make some of the things that feel like Star Wars editing make more sense. That'd be nice. Or maybe, what's his name's gonna shoot first? Like clever humor. Rufus shoots first in the remake.
I'm betting it'll be a lot less. I'm betting there will be a lot less motorcycle riding and snowboarding because they don't have to cover up changing the entire world over.
Those moments. Here's my favorite part about Final Fantasy VII, and then it was dashed like 2 seconds later, is I'm like, I never rode a chocobo, and I'm so happy that I never rode a chocobo, but you have to ride a chocobo in order to earn your freedom from the coral prison.
Into battle. Yeah.
That's the other thing. But like, there's that whole section where you have to cross the swamp, and they're like, go get a chocobo. And I go to the chocobo farm that's conveniently nearby, and the guy's like, oh, you have to catch a chocobo, and to do that, you'll need one of these special lures that is 3,000 gil. And I looked at him and said, fuck you, buddy. I don't need a chocobo.
I don't need a chocobo for this shit.
I'll run through that swamp until I make it.
Don't you get attacked by like an ultimate or something like that?
You get attacked by a snake monster. And what I did, I just like ran at it from the mountainside. So the mountains were to my east. And so it only gave like one direction that the snake could come from, because it doesn't spawn from the cave you're running to, and it will spawn from the south once you get to a certain spot. But I had just made it enough distance that like I was able to just sneak into the cave.
Nice.
And I'm like, oh man, I hope that doesn't screw me later. I hope I can get back later. But like when he's like, yeah, it's $3,000 to get your chocobo, I'm like, no, it's not. I'm not an 11-year-old child anymore. I'm not paying for the privilege to ride a chocobo. That's some nonsense.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how much of that sort of stuff kind of transfers over and what disappears and what sticks around. I mean, like, the second they said the combat's changing, everything's off the table at that point, you know?
Right. But it seems like the materia system is sticking around, and the materia system is the greatest.
Yeah.
Hi, Devon Decker here. 22 years later, the materia system in Final Fantasy VII is awesome.
Yeah.
It was an indicator to me that I was like, oh, maybe I overleveled myself. Maybe I'm a bit overleveled when I started mastering spells.
Yeah.
And like I wasn't on the second disc yet. I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, man, but like we talked about this a little bit last week, but like the idea that you're supposed to sell, you know, part of the economy is the materia system is really, really well integrated into the economy. So you can make a ton of money by picking up a really cheap low level material, leveling it up, you know, and it doesn't take that long to level it up. You know, it takes some work, but if you're like specifically like if you're working through like three or four different characters and saying, all right, like this guy is always going to have the highest level fire, but I can rotate out lower level spells when he's out in the world, because like then you grind and you get that stuff up. Then you sell off one of those high level materia, and suddenly you're fucking sitting rich and pretty. And 3,000 gil to ride a chocobo seems like nothing.
Right. I never felt like I needed money, and I feel like that's just as an adult RPGs. Like as a kid, I always felt like starved for money in RPGs.
Yeah.
But as an adult, I'm like, I'm not gonna buy that. What, you want me to buy that? Like, no. I don't need to pay to. I'll find a sword. And if not, the sword I have is, you know, it's not great, but it's making do. Yeah.
It's really interesting because right now I'm replaying South Park Fractured But Whole, and in that and in Stick of Truth, the economy system is so interesting because it's so clearly meant to be a commentary on like RPG economy systems that like it really doesn't matter after a while, and they don't tell you how to cheese it, but the second you figure out like, oh, I'm set for life, is when you realize like all of the little shit you're picking up, like the garbage and the trash that in every other RPG is really usually not worth much. In those two games, they're everything. So I went from having $5 to having $65 just by stopping at a vendor and selling trash. Like, and in that game, nothing costs anything because it's all kid stuff. So it's all $2 for this, $3 for that. So I was suddenly like set for life. And I was thinking about this exact thing, like the way that the economy works in these RPGs. But I do remember when I was a kid playing Final Fantasy VII and grinding, because not just because I wanted to advance my character's experience, but also because I needed some fucking money so I could start picking up some more materia and some better weapons and some better armor and shit, you know?
Yeah, like there was one moment where I was like, oh, I could kind of use money. Like I'm a little low, it feels like. And then, like, I just played the game. I didn't, like, do any deliberate grinding. And then I looked up at how much money I had in my coffers, and I'm like, oh, I have 52,000 gil? Oh, I don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, there's never a point where you feel like money is going to be your biggest issue in that game. The thing for me always was making sure that I had leveled partners on my team, that they all had leveled magic, and that on top of that they all had the good weapons, because nothing was worse than a character disappearing for 40 minutes in that game, so I can't use the one I've been using this whole time. Suddenly I have fucking like Red 13 and he's got a low level weapon on him from like 5 hours ago that I just hadn't touched him in that time.
Yeah. My main team was Tifa, Cloud, and Red 13. Nanaki. Yep. Let's call him by his real name, not his Genova name. And yeah, it just that team really worked out for me. The moment that sucked, like that just kind of sucked. Two moments really sucked for me. Spoilers for Final Fantasy VII, and then I promise we'll talk about other things. But like this was my big journey. I played for 14 hours on Saturday because I'm like I just need to be done with it. Going to bed at 4 a.m. was awesome, and also like I hate my life. But it feels like no time at all passed. But moment one that sucked. So I finally did the date at the Golden Saucer.
Yeah.
Where it's revealed that Kate Sith is a spy. And then it's like, oh, you need to go to the Temple of the Ancients. And Eris is coming. She's like, I'm coming with you. And I'm like, I have deliberately not been doing anything with you, Eris. I didn't want to invest any time in you because, you know, I heard what's going to happen to you.
I got an inkling.
I got the world, you know, I've seen the memes. I've seen the Yuta Man Now dogs. Like, it's not worth it investing time and effort into you, Eris, when I'm going to lose you eventually. Yeah. So I'm stuck with Cloud and Eris, and then it's like, oh, who else is coming? And I'm like, oh, well, I'll bring Tifa. And I'm like, no, I don't want to bring Tifa. Like, what really weighed on me is the fact that I now know that Kate Sith is a spy, and the only other member of my team who knows that he's a spy is Eris. So it's like, I don't want to leave this spy with, like, my unsuspecting buddies and then come back. So I'm like, I'm bringing Kate Sith, too. And it's like, I had done nothing with Kate Sith at all. I'm like, you're goofy.
You're a weird character.
Yeah, I guess you could get. I'm like, you're coming. I'm keeping an eye on you. Because, and then, like, in a lot of ways, and I know that that game was about choice. Like, you look at that, and I think that's one of the things where all the Final Fantasy games that have multiple, like, parties. So I guess Final Fantasy VI forward, I might be wrong about that. There might be later ones that don't give you that same level of choice. But 6 is the one where it's like, here's 24 people, build your team. It's 22, not 24. It's 22 people, build your team. And then, you know, Final Fantasy VII, it's like, here's 9 people, build your team. But that's a moment where eventually Kate Sith is like the necessary party in order to turn the Temple of Ancients into black materia. So, like, in a lot of ways, it would have made sense if that was a forced team that you had to use for that. Yeah. If, like, Cloud was like, well, I don't trust you, so you're coming. And then Eris is like, and I'm going too. And then you, like, as a kid, you'd be like, well, fuck, I haven't played with these two. Yep. Well, it's a white mage and a friggin', I don't even know what to call you, Casey.
Yeah, chaos. Like, he's, like, chaotic cleric or something.
I love his dice. I'm not going to lie, the dice mechanic is awesome. I did 3,800 damage to something, and I'm like, that felt good because I'm very early in the game still. Yeah. It's not like when I'm fighting Sephiroth at the end and I'm like, oh, I don't have any MP on Cloud. I'll just use my sword. And the sword did 999 damage. And I'm like, why haven't I been using the sword this whole time? Bahamut Zero did 7,000. My sword is more stronger. Oh, man. So, yeah. So that's it. And the other part in the game was that was really the big one, was the whole, you know, I don't trust Kate Sith and I need to take him with me.
Yeah, and then I love that you found this kind of thing with this game because, like, welcome to the party, man.
Yeah, no, it's cool. And it's one of those things where I'm like, I get it, I understand it. Through 2019 eyes, there are a lot of flaws. But they weren't flaws in 1997. It's just that, like, games have evolved. So, like, it would be a big hurdle to get into this type of game later on in life.
Yeah, I wonder how much of that exact attitude goes into their decision to release it episodically. They are considering them episodes, right? Like that's...
and the only thing the biggest problem that I have with that is that they're not being upfront with how many episodes.
Oh.
I don't like that. I don't like that at all. It's shades of a game from 10 years ago, Sonic the Hedgehog 4, that was Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1, And then they're like, we're not going to tell you how many episodes there were. And then everybody hated Sonic the Hedgehog 4, so there were only 2 episodes.
Yeah.
But it still felt like an incomplete game because I'm sure they wanted to do more and have people spend money for years and years on Sonic 4, and it just didn't work. Because, like, people in the Sonic community, like, that game never happened. What are you talking about?
Right.
Sonic Mania is Sonic 4. And I'm like, I like Sonic 4. Granted, it was the only Sonic game I had to play because I was stuck on a cruise ship in the middle of the ocean, but I still enjoyed it.
Context is key, man. Just putting that out there.
Yeah, it's an important thing.
I'm super glad that you were able to pull this off this year and that it ended so well. Like,
it's the other big scroogabooga. I was so unhappy. I didn't die like at all in the game. And then I get to the center of the earth, right? The whole thing. And the first fight I get after, like, well, there's no turning back now, is it's one of those, like, big steel golem guys who can swing the sword. And the one sword strike just killed my whole team. And I wasn't weak at any, like, I was, like, solidly leveled. Everybody had full health. It was just, like, that was unfortunate what just happened.
Was it RNG?
It was just RNG. It was just RNG, like, just hit me. And I'm like, well, that was terrible what just occurred. I'm so unhappy right now. So I had to do the whole march down to that area again. And, like, that's where I'm like, I'm done with this game. Like, I'm done with you. Welcome to the party, pal. I didn't pick up any chests. I didn't care who went left, right, up, or down. I'm like, I just want to get back to that. And fight Sephiroth and be done with this stupid game.
Oh.
But yeah, so I did it. So that was fun. And that's my big I did a bunch of other stuff too. But that's
200 unique games this year.
200 unique games in a year. And I see people on Twitter like, my goal for next year is to beat 30 modern-ish games, full story, and then like do some retro stuff. And I'm like, oh man, now I got to do the data. Like, I need to crunch the data and see how many of those games were, like, retro games or how many were new games. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. I mean, like, you were personally drawn to a lot more, I don't want to say quick games, but straightforward games. Like, you're much more drawn to the kind of game that tells you to go to point A to point B and kill everything in between. And, like, that's fine. Like, that is definitely a style of game that has worked for decades.
Yes, I do like a linear game. I don't feel bad admitting that.
Right. Yeah. So I think that I wouldn't be surprised to find that like the majority of what you completed this year were games in a linear fashion, especially the more retro you go. But man, like Final Fantasy VII is nothing to like joke at. And you started this year with friggin' Resident Evil 2. So like you kind of bookended this year very nicely for me.
Well, you know what the big thing is, and this is the cool thing about this journey, is I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to check the numbers, but I think the very first game, like chronologically, it based on release year that I beat, is E.T. for Atari 2600.
Hell yeah, man!
And like just the fact that I played and beat E.T. was considered the worst video game ever. Like, I, took the time to learn how to play E.T., and then also played Final Fantasy VII, one of those games that many consider the pinnacle of all gaming through generations. Like, that's fun. The fact that both of those were in this year are fun. And then, of course, I did some strategy games like North and South, which, if you're smart, you can beat it in 3 turns. You gotta play as the South, though, which is weird. But they can wipe out the North in 3 turns.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's stuff like that. But yeah, so that's me right now. I have other stuff. Siegen, what have you been up to since last we talked? And I don't mean about Vincent LaGuardia Gambini.
Man, Christmas, right?
Yeah, like Christmas happened.
We had a whole holiday in there. I spent the day of Christmas helping old ladies set up their new Christmas Rokus and whatnot, and that was an enjoyable experience. But no, man, I've been hanging out. I've just been fucking blasting through The Witcher, um, getting getting some time in like Mario Maker again. Just weirdly playing South Park again. Trying to get a little bit of Borderlands in where I can. It's been a it's just been a week of me kind of trying to like fit it all in, I guess. Like, not that any of this stuff is anything I can't do after 2019 is over, but there's just like this sense of finality, to this year coming to an end that I'd like to wrap some stuff up.
Yeah, no, I understand that. It's one of the reasons why I forced myself to finish it on Saturday so that I'd have 3 days to do things and
Hmm.
not continue playing this game. And you mentioned something about. So, are there new Mario Maker levels from Siegen?
There,
Like, can I play
n
new Mario Maker levels from Siegen?
No, there's not much being made right now because I've started a whole bunch of stuff. So ever since the Link updates to Mario Maker, I've been diving in, playing more than I've been making, and like everything I've been making has just felt so underwhelming. So like I'm trying to figure some stuff out still. There's something about the idea that when I got Mario Maker in my hands, like vanilla Mario Maker, like
Are
the
we talking
idea
all the way
that
back to Wii U time?
right,
Okay.
yeah. So like the second I got that game in my hands, I already knew so much about what I could do and wanted to try. And like I just don't have any of that for the Link add-on. I just don't have a sense of like of those abilities and those, especially not in a two-dimensional space. As somebody that's never played a two-dimensional Zelda like ever, I just can't I I can't think of those puzzles in the way that I could think of the Mario ones, and it's been a struggle. It's been a real struggle, and I'm interested to know how much of the community has kind of not switched over, but dove into this other stuff as well, or if this is feeding a niche audience or not. Because I'm not seeing many of the levels being made that like on the grand scheme of things. Like I'm seeing hundreds of thousands of levels being made, but compared to they're still making audio Mario levels every day. There's at least 1,000 of those going up. Um, I just don't know. I don't know if this update is working for me.
Yeah, when it first came out, like I played a bunch of them. Obviously, like card carrying Zelda dude here, like
Hmm.
competed in a competition, like for money, for Zelda. So I play Zelda. I get Zelda, and the best level that I played was one that forced me to learn all of the different inputs
Yeah.
that were related to Link.
I think you and I wonder if you and I played the same. That's about the only one of them that I actually liked, so that I have it still saved in my list. And I bet you it's the same exact level.
More than likely, because I played it and I'm like, I love this because it lets me know, oh, you can block. Oh, this is how you dash. This is what shooting an arrow is. It's like
Hmm.
the controls are just so weird. It's so different from Mario, and not just in terms of like Zelda is a different game from Mario. It's also very different from Zelda.
Yeah,
You're
that's where I
almost
think I'm really caught it
yeah.
up. Is not only is it different from Mario, it's also so different from Zelda, so I have no reference point.
Right. Because Mario, all you really need are the run button and the jump button. And then they have
Hmm.
the spin jump button. But that only comes in, in later games. Right? Like two of the versions that you can build in Mario, that doesn't matter at all, that
Exactly.
button.
Right.
Zelda, it's strictly structured so that you have to be in NES Mario mode. So by all accounts, it should just be the two buttons again, and that'd be fine. Jump and sword instead of fireball, and
Right.
that should be enough. That should be it. But then it's almost like controlling him in Super Smash Brothers, where up and B, oh, here's a bomb, and
Yeah. And
it's
here's the
strange.
arrow, and he
Yeah,
could point the arrow in this direction. Also, the arrow will bounce off of some things, but not other things. So like you've got to, and I'm not knocking the idea of neat mechanics at all. Like I love the idea of what's going on here. I just don't have a handle on it yet. So from like a maker perspective, it's a little disappointing because like I feel like I said, every time I start trying to make a Zelda level, it just doesn't. It's not very interesting. It doesn't. I'm not doing much of the stuff that I'm sure he's capable of doing. Right. From a player perspective, it's super fun to be able to roll around and get into that game and play something that's not Mario sometimes is kind of fun. I mean, half of the Mario based levels are not Mario levels. There's some other game that is just being made in the Mario Maker engine, which is always the best part, right? Like people have been making Zelda levels long before Link was a character in the game. So like I think that it's a really good add-on. I think that it's just the kind of thing that's going to take some more time with me, which is interesting to say considering how much time I put into Mario Maker 2 this year. That it at the end it really did push me away.
The biggest issue, though, is the simplicity of Mario is sort of the draw for me into a game like Super Mario Maker.
Sure.
Because, oh, I know how to play Mario, so I can jump into Super Mario Maker and be playing Mario. And I don't really care about making. I've mentioned that. I've made some fun levels that are like short or gimmicky or like make me happy with their like whatever theme that I threw in there. But then you add something that like is just so technical in execution that it's almost daunting as a player to want to do levels that require it. So I can imagine that same feeling of like, oh, what do I do with this, extending to the maker space of it. And I've watched people try to make, like, sometimes I'll watch Twitch streams where it's like, I'm trying to make a good Zelda level, and they're like, oh, I guess I can't do that because the sword doesn't function that way against what I put there, and I need that there.
Yeah, and I wonder, though, like, I never really thought about it in the way of, like, the Mario Maker player, like, community is something else. Like it runs the gambit from people that are just like in it to have a good time to people that are like hardcore. They spend 8 hours a day on Twitch playing in front of an audience, and they've gotten good, especially over 2 games, right? And so there's the idea of the Kaizu level and these guys that make these insanely hard levels. One of the very first levels I ever made. In fact, like maybe the second level I ever made was kind of dedicated to that mentality of like pixel perfection and stuff like that, right? And so like.
And I broke that level. I'm just going to tell you, like, it was like, I know what he wants me to do, but screw him.
Yeah. But that's just it, right? I don't know if they ever anticipated that part of the audience being the driving force it has become. Like, it really is kind of the driving force behind Mario Maker in the long run. Because, like, watching people have fun playing Mario Maker is good for a couple of months. But if I really want to stick with it and watch it for the rest of my life, like, I want to see it get hardcore. And so I almost wonder if what it is that we've kind of, like, the audience got so good at Mario Maker that they felt they needed to introduce this even more complicated part to it, and then they didn't sell it that way. They sold it as like, here's something for everybody, but really it's not for everybody. Really what it's for is for these people that got so good at playing just run and jump that they've also now added shoot and bomb on top of run and jump. It does feel like maybe that's the audience they were truly catering to, despite the fact that it wasn't until this moment that I ever really thought about it.
But that also feels like a terrific misstep if that was the intention behind it, because the reason why those people play the game and enjoy the game is because they like the run and jump. They like having to utilize those two things.
And we've never heard of Nintendo
making
a giant misstep in
never ever.
We heard you like the internet, so here's a very small portion of it that's dedicated just to us. It's like, no.
One of the things that drove net Wii sales in its later years was Netflix. Let's not give them
Netflix machine.
On
literally
Switch.
Yeah. Oh god. Anyway, yeah. So like Mario Maker, like came out strong this year for me, but in the end, kind of it's really kind of puttering out, and I will continue to go back to it. It's not gone forever, but interesting considering what this year has been for games.
Yeah, I mean it's been 2019 was a great year for games. I don't know how I want to play this. I want to end on what my game of the year is for 2019. Because I'm still, right now, ruminating on if I'm okay with my selection.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like, I don't know, do you ever watch Joe Pera Talks with You on Cartoon Network? This is going to be my like, pitch for go watch Joe Pera Talks with You.
Hells no, what is this?
Oh, okay. So, in 2015, geez, this show's been around for a long time, as one of the infomercial things, they did an animated special called Joe Pera Talks You to Sleep. And he's this guy who has like a soothing voice. He's from the UP, and that first episode is animated. And he's just there with his dog, and it's snowing outside, and he's like, I'm going to talk you to sleep. And then as he talks, like, there's live action imagery to go around with what he's speaking about. Okay. And it's this show that exists and is amazing. Like, that's great. So they follow that up with a Christmas special called Joe Pera Helps You Pick Out the Perfect Christmas Tree. And it's a half hour of him talking about Christmas trees. And then a secondary layer to this show is he's a choir teacher, and he's nervous that at the winter concert, his students are going to mix up two songs. The first song being Snow, 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 and the second song being Snow, 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 Snow. I kid you not. Like, this is what the show is. And then
this is phenomenal.
Those two specials did so well that they gave Joe Pera 15-minute episodes. And that's amazing. I love the show. The second season just started 2 weeks ago. The next one comes back this Friday, the 3rd. So there's plenty of time to catch up. And it's just very funny.
And this is not Adult Swim. This is Cartoon Network.
This is Adult Swim. It's Adult Swim.
It's Adult Swim.
But it's so wholesome. Like you say, this is Cartoon Network, because what it literally feels like is like a Blue's Clues or a show for children, but for adults, where like he's talking to you about more adult things. But like in one of the latest episodes, he's like, "What type of fish do you think I'm gonna have for dinner tonight? Whitefish or perch?" And then he pauses for you to answer him. And he goes, "That's right. What do you think my second choice is going to be?" "We'll see." And it's just like, so it's great. The show is just very good. But specifically, I feel like I'm sort of aping that style, because in the second episode, it's Joe Pera takes you to breakfast, and he goes into the diner and he's like, "I don't know what I'm going to have for breakfast today. You'll have to keep watching to find out. Maybe I'll have pancakes. Maybe I'll have," and he goes through this whole list of things that he'll have. And then like all of his friends are at their diner, so he talks to them. And then at the end, they're like, "So what are you going to have for breakfast today, Joe?" And he's like, "Pancakes." So like the setup and the wait for it's all there, but because he still needed to think through what he was going to get. But he was pretty sure that he was going to get pancakes. You could tell that from minute one. Watch Joe Pera Talks with You. The show's great. I love the show. He is fantastic.
Well, I got something I can kill some time for.
Okay. It currently has a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's
the
awesome.
show is just perfect in the eyes of people who viewed the show. So watch Joe Pera. But I am still ruminating, even though at the end I'm probably just going to order pancakes regarding what my game of the year 2019 is. So if you have some way to kill some time, that's fine. I have stuff that I did too, but let's see what Siegen brings to the table.
Well, no, because like this has been a huge year for games. I mean, not just you playing through your 200, but there's been a lot of like big stuff that has come that has been a long time waiting for a lot of people. So like we talked earlier about Resident Evil 2 coming out. I mean, this was also the year that saw Kingdom Hearts 3 finally come to fruition. Borderlands 3 is like the big thing on everybody's mind right now. I mean, even Luigi's Mansion 3, like Death Stranding, like kind of like what's his name? Finally breaking off from Konami. Kojima, yeah.
Kokojima. That's what I'm calling him now from now on. Hideo Kojima.
But yeah, him finally breaking away from Konami and seeing what he can do when he's the one doing everything. I just tonight was watching a BBC America documentary on the making of Death Stranding, and it was 20 minutes of watching Hideo Kojima watch a preview, go back to his film editor, because he's apparently the one that edited all of his own previews for the game. Then, once he was finished re-editing, take that preview then over to the sound booth, sit there with the sound guy for another couple of hours, and then get all of the sounds right in it, then go back and redo the preview. And he's just touching every piece of it, is got his hands on it. And like, it was something. For anybody that's been listening to Say Report Junior knows that some of the insanity of what's going on in that game and around that game. We had a new Pokemon this year, right? Like that was the big thing too. But there was a whole bunch of stuff that I feel like we should have been talking more about this year that did not get talked about.
Okay, like, I'm excited.
Well, like, Well, first of all, there was a Toe Jam and Earl remake release this year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wasn't a big
How
fan of it. That's gonna
how did
be.
well, right. That's what I mean. It's like how did that happen? Like I fucking loved Toe Jam and Earl when I was growing up. It was the weirdest game ever.
I think you know what the problem is with Toe Jam and Earl, and it's a problem with a lot of Sega Genesis games.
Mhm.
Is the okay? So I have this theory, and I've talked about this theory a bunch, where like the first game is sort of a proof of concept game, like Mega Man One, the original Mega Man game, brings to the table a lot of the things you see going forward in Mega Man games. But
Mhm.
Mega Man 2 feels like we refined everything, and this is probably the game you should start with. Like, we see that definitely with Street Fighter 2. Like, you can't play Street Fighter anywhere. I think it was finally released last year on the Anniversary Collection. But no one knows Street Fighter. Everybody knows Street Fighter 2, and it's 7 or 8 iterations that came out. Genesis games, for the most part, the first game would come out and it would be like this wacky, off the wall concept, and there'd be some stuff that worked and some stuff that didn't work. And then rather than figure out the stuff that worked and like feed into that, the sequel on the Genesis would just be a completely different game. And like that's what happens with Toe Jam and Earl.
Yeah.
Because Toe Jam and Earl, the first one, is this 3D isometric view where you're walking around a world map and you're hunting for parts of your ship, and it's this
Talking to Santa.
yeah, it's this crazy game, right?
Yeah,
Looking
yeah,
for
yeah.
presents and knowing that presents could be good or could be bad, but you should probably open them up anyway.
Are there kids in the first game at all? Like, are they not part of this, like, the whole? Because in the second game, like, evil children become like a huge part of the whole.
Yeah,
like...
no. So the problem with Toe Jam and Earl is that they're on whatever planet they're on. I think they're on Earth. I think
I
that
you
they're
were like,
supposed to
meth.
be on
Yeah,
Earth.
okay. Yes.
So they're interacting with humans, and so there are some good humans and there are some annoying humans.
Right,
So
but
humans are a part of the game.
whole, and part of the whole shtick is that the story is obviously being told from our two heroes' perspective, Toe Jam and Earl. So they're seeing the world, they're seeing our world, but it is like warped, and also on top of that, like things are evil to them. So it's really it's got that Sega attitude to it, you know, like Sonic is the bad boy attitude, just kind of like folded into it because by necessity all Sega games had to be rad.
That's how you do what Nintendo don't.
Yeah. But it legitimately like it hooked me when I was a kid. Like the music is fucking banging. Like any of the music in those games is just so good, especially because on the Sega Genesis, like for all the shit that we might want to say about what it is compared to the Super Nintendo, it did have better parts in some ways.
Yeah, no,
and like
the sound
yeah.
alone is. I mean,
Right.
if you have a first version of that with the headphone jack and the slider for volume, that's the way to play that system.
Right,
Like,
right.
There's a reason why when Analog made their like hyper high class Sega Genesis, the Mega SG, they included a headphone jack because like that's how those songs were intended to be heard for a lot of these Genesis games.
Yeah, so like Toe Jam and Earl just became this thing, and then yeah, 2 comes around and they just
two
completely
is it's a platformer.
Yep.
And the thing is, like what you said, they're back on Funkatron, so they're back on their home planet. So that cool narrative thing of like them seeing our world through alien eyes is just gone. That's lost.
Right.
And like the gameplay loop is throwing jars at humans who have escaped on their planet to catch them and bring them back to Earth.
Send them back to Earth. From
Yeah.
what I gather, they're basically like dog catchers for humans.
Yeah, they're like that. It's sort of like a reverse Zombies Ate My Neighbors.
Yeah.
And that game, it gets boring in a way that the first game never got for me.
Yeah.
Because like it was just fun to walk around and see what would happen in the original Toe Jam and Earl, and the co-op in that is incredible. And so like, but that's sort of the issue. So like they abandoned what made Toe Jam and Earl cool and different in that first game, and for the second game, and then you have the third game that comes out on Xbox, because a lot of people forget that the Xbox sort of became the home for Sega sequels. That's where Crazy Taxi 3 went, Jet Set Radio Future, and, you know, Toe Jam and Earl 3, which introduced Letitia, who's a blue alien who's their friend. And, like, I couldn't even tell you what that game's about. Because, like, I never played it. I only ever saw it on store
Also,
shelves.
style-wise, completely different once again because we're now in the age of the Xbox, so it's a 3D world, right? For that one, yeah. So we've gone from this like isometric top-down view to this weird front view platformer version of them to now this like 3D version. So like they're definitely searching for a personality still to this day. I think I don't know, like it's and the fact that that game came out for Switch and disappeared is
Switch,
probably,
PlayStation 4, it came out everywhere.
was it on PS4? I thought it was one of those like Switch exclusive nonsenses.
No, I played
it's so interesting because you look at what we did with Crash Bandicoot and Spyro in the last 2 years, or like what we've seen with like the remake of Link's Awakening this year, and then to see like a game like Toe Jam and Earl, or what's the other big Sega one that came out this year? Bubsy.
Oh no, but I don't think of Bubsy as a Genesis game,
true.
but that's
it's
not
just Genesis exclusive. But that was another one that got remade this year that kind of just went nowhere.
Yeah, it's I mean, people who played Return of Toe Jam and Earl really enjoyed it, and I mean, I played it and it was very similar to that original game, but the randomized version of the game, which like that's one of the earliest instances of a randomized game, is locked behind completing it static first, which seems strange considering the first Toe Jam and Earl, like you had to go into options to put on static, like it started randomized.
Yeah.
So that was strange, and but really it was the art style that kind of turned me off, because it's, I guess for lack of a better term, flash animation. Like it's that style of animation where like thick lines and I don't know, it's what they're doing with Streets of Rage 4 that's coming out next year. It's more cartoony, and I'm fine with that. I'm okay with a cartoony look and vibe to a game, but it then also needs to be fun to play, and I didn't like, I have friends who speedrun and will play through the original Toe Jam and Earl all the time. They're the people that I played Return of Toe Jam and Earl with, and even then they're like, I just keep getting bored. And I'm like, that's crazy, because you've played the first one 1,000 times. So like, for you to look at this one and be like, this is boring, when this is the first one that feels like a true sequel to that original game, like, that's another swing and a miss on the Toe Jam and Earl series.
Yeah. So just surprised we didn't talk about that. I was surprised that we didn't talk more about Crash Team Racing. God, that was super good.
I was less than enthused by Crash Team Racing. The big, like, I think we talked about it here. If we didn't, Redbox has stopped renting games, and I feel like my 2019 is a huge contributor to that. Because I rented so many games, beat them in a night, and then returned them to Redbox rather than buy the game. Like, that's how I did Devil May Cry 5. That's how I did Resident Evil 2. And if I hadn't fallen in love with Resident Evil 2, like, I wouldn't have bought it. Like, I would have played through it and been like, well, that was fun. But in one night, in one rental period, I beat it as Claire and Leon A's story. And was like, well, this is great. I need more of this. I need you to just inject it directly into my veins, PlayStation.
Yeah.
So you look at that, but like Crash Team Racing is one that I rented, and I'm like, oh, I'm glad I paid $3 for you instead of $40.
Yeah. Well, it's just it was a game that like growing up for me was like huge. Like because PlayStation was the only system that we really had for a while, so we didn't have Mario Kart. You know, when I was playing Crash Team Racing, everybody else was playing like Double Dash and stuff like that. Like, so there's like a weird hole in my Mario Kart lore because I went over to Team Crash for a bit. You know,
I think the bigger issue that I had with that was that it was a remake and not a sequel.
Yeah,
because it's like, I've done this before, and the only thing that gave me any real issue was the last race against nitrous oxide, and I'm like, well, this was always hard. Like, It doesn't.
Yeah.
And then when I finally beat it, I'm like, well, I beat it, and I beat it with my character. I never I didn't listen to what the fast. I played as the tiger, and that made me happy to
Yeah.
beat it as the little tiger.
I think while we're talking about kart games, though, we would be remiss if we did not mention what was possibly the worst game of the year that came out this year. Garfield Kart Fast and Furious, I think.
Oh my
Hold on, let me
God.
look up that.
We're really talking about
Furious Racing. It's Furious Racing. I just keep saying Furious because it's a Garfield game. But yeah, I didn't even know this was a game until I was looking this year at release today at releases just to make sure I had all my ducks in a row, and I was like, Garfield Kart. And then I looked at it and I was like, oh, Garfield Kart came out in 2013. And then I realized that what came out this year was a sequel. Like, Nintendo, what are you doing? What is going on the Switch? Dude, why is nobody paying attention to what they're doing?
If we're going to talk about that, Nicktoon Racing had a new game in its series this year. And, the Ninja Turtles are there because they are owned by Nickelodeon now. Well, by Viacom. So I'm just I kind of want to play it. Because, I liked the Game Boy Color one.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Nicktoon Racing was great, man. So, but so I'm looking at Garfield Kart and just reading some of the reviews on it, and it is just abysmal. I don't know what people thought was going to happen with this, but I don't know. Oh man, hey, there's a shit ton of 5-star reviews on Amazon, though. I should say that.
Well, I believe that because I don't know. I don't understand review culture. The
first review is titled "Meme Game Without Enough Memes."
Fair. That's okay. So they're joke reviews, and that's fun. And someone might write something fun there. But it's one of those things where I sometimes get the email "Hey, do you want to write a review for this item you just wrote?" And I'm like, Devon Decker, Amazon reviewer. No, I can't do that. I can't be that. I can't become that guy. I can't have a ponytail and a chain around my glasses, licking my fingertips. Ugh. There's your next San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Devon Decker pop figure, Amazon reviewer.
5 stars. Lasagna with extra Parmesan. Only line in the entire review. Better than Pokemon Sword and Shield.
This is what games were in 2019. So I'd like to steer away from them briefly.
Yeah.
I watched The Mandalorian. All 8 episodes.
Oh shit, you're ahead of me now.
Yeah, fuck you, Seijin. High five, Sherman.
As soon as this recording's over, I'm gonna go upstairs and finish up 7 and 8. So.
Yeah, we were like, we'll just check out an episode last night. And then we watched 5 episodes. I want to finish, but I'm so tired.
Yeah, kind of does that, man.
But you know what? Here's the weird thing, right? Spoilers for the Mandalorian, just to cover our asses in case I say or do something. I won't talk about 7 or 8, but I understood why you stopped after the 6th episode, because that episode didn't feel like the Mandalorian.
Well, we legitimately we just haven't been able to because of everybody.
People went away for traveling and Christmas. I know that, but
wait,
I stick by what I said.
Is 6 the heist or is 5 the heist?
6 is the heist.
Yeah, what's the matter? I feel like every one of these loner hero shows has to have a heist episode. All I can think of is Angel had one. The Leverage every episode was one.
Oh yeah, let's reference Leverage as they had heists and Leverage. That was the show, Dad. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah,
but that's what I mean. It's the audience, the kind of audience that this show is catering to, loves themselves a good heist. So I don't know. I was very pleased, but
see, because you keep calling it a heist, and it doesn't feel like a heist.
Okay.
It feels like a jailbreak story. It doesn't feel like a heist. It's not one of these things where
I equate the two, the jailbreak storyline and the heist. They're just stealing a person in that case, but it's the same idea. You still have the whole here's the plan, lay out the plan goes wrong, now we improvise, plot. Yeah,
I don't feel like that's what happened in that episode at all. I'm gonna just be honest with you. That's what I was hoping for. I'm because I even said all right, so this is their version of the heist thing. They've made some changes, some obvious changes, some changes it's not a bunch of strangers coming together. It's one dude coming together to join an already established group, and he has history with one of them.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I mean, like it's. I mean,
it's
these are
just
small changes on the larger scheme of what I consider to be a heist episode. But
like
okay, yes.
so that it was like, but okay, so it's weird because like they're established, so there was never a moment where I'm like, they're not gonna fuck over Mando, like
Well, no, we know from moment one they're going to. He's basically told that by
by the
Sons
guy.
of Anarchy. There, like,
Oh, by the
he,
Nazi from Jackie Brown,
yeah, yeah,
Richard
yeah. No,
Boone
that's.
Jr.
I mean,
I know his
we're
name.
we're definitely. I don't think we're ever not supposed to believe that. But that's one of the things about the show writ large. And you're not the only person that I've heard say this, where they feel like a lot of the show is telegraphed. Is it's like, yes, like it's very purposely aping some like very specific stories. I mean, there's first of all the entire Western mentality of the entire show,
And
right?
then the
But
fourth
then,
episode is the Magnificent Seven.
well, right. But then like there's also the and Westerns also kind of reference this as well. But is it Pup and Wolf? Is that the name of the series? I
Uh,
forget what the translation is.
Lone
In
Wolf
Cub,
and Cub.
Wolf and Cub, yeah, Lone Wolf and Cub, and that's like Hawk and Chick. But that is the
That's Bob's Burgers.
right. But that's the reference, right? Like it is this samurai, the last of the samurai that has found this child, and he decides that this is going to become his purpose, right? Is beat for beat the story that we're watching. So like the idea of it being telegraphed is so weird to me because like Star Wars has always been telegraphed. This
Yeah,
then
and
Westerns are
and
telegraphed.
I'm fine with telegraphing. It's just that, so for me, and I think for other people, because it was after the 6th episode that I heard a lot of detractors for the show. Like, nothing but praise coming out of this show for the first 5 episodes. And honestly, I'll be honest with you, I'm like, all right, so I'm probably not going to watch it, right? Because I'm Devon Decker, and I have this weird mental block where, like, if the group likes it, I'm probably not going to.
Mhm.
So all this praise getting heaped upon it for the first 5 episodes, and then the 6 episodes come, and people are like, "Oh, maybe it's not as good as we thought." And I'm like, "Well, sign me up for the Mandalorian, right? Like, because that'll do it. Like, that's all I need is like, oh, maybe we chose the wrong god.
Yeah.
I gave myself tentacles under my chin. I don't know why for that. But hand tentacles.
Because those people are basically in a cult.
Yeah, that's what I was doing. We picked the wrong god, and so then to watch it and be like, oh, I love it because it's like a Western. And the best part about Westerns is you've seen a Western, so they're okay with like the shorthand. Where like you've seen a Western before, so we're just gonna treat you like you're intelligent. It's that whole type of storytelling that like has sort of been lost in modern cinema, where like we want to make sure the audience understands. We're not going to let them assume anything. So for those first 5 episodes, they're like really good Western old samurai like stories that do it, and then like plopped in the 6th slot is this episode that just like, oh no, this don't feel like the other ones. This feels like Ocean's 11 in space, kinda more the Italian Job.
Yeah.
Like definitely more the Italian Job. Like I don't want to. Sorry, I said Ocean's 11 to anybody who might have been offended. Especially since you haven't seen 7 or 8 yet, those also feel like that same thing. So 6 sort of sticks out as this weird episode. And it sucks because there's some stuff in it that I really dig, and there's some cool character development for the Mandalorian. But when you tell me I stopped at 6, my initial thought is like, well, it kind of makes sense where like I could see how someone's like, I need to take a break from this after this episode.
Yeah, no, like I said, like legitimately the only reason we stopped was because people went away. Other than that, we would have been finished.
That makes me happy.
Yeah,
I can't believe I finished before you. I'm like, I'm gonna be so good. I've been putting off watching The Mandalorian, even though I said I'd watch it, and it's really good. He's just such a great character, and the actors that they're getting to portray other parts in it are really, really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, Mandalorian, Devon Decker approved.
Yeah, I mean, even the creation teams behind it. I mean, like you have directors like not only do you have Favreau, but you have Bryce Dallas Howard, Taika Waititi comes in at one point. Like there's just really, really, really good work going on in every aspect of that series.
Yeah, they're doing a good job. It's really good. That Bryce Dallas Howard episode, it's episode 4. It's Sanctuary is the name of the episode. Magnificent 2.
with the UFC
Gina
fighter there.
Carano,
Yeah,
Angel
Gina
Dust
Carano.
from Deadpool.
Or yes, I and like anybody that wants to see that girl fucking watch Haywire. She wrecks some people in Haywire.
She's good. She's very good. I think there's a
Yeah,
reason why
yeah.
she's in this. There's a
Hmm.
reason why it's not Ronda Rousey playing Cara Dune.
Yes, yes. Oh man, yeah, man. I'm glad. I'm glad you watched it.
So,
And
but that Bryce Dallas Howard episode, when her name came up, I'm like, holy shit, really?
yeah,
Because I don't think I've ever seen anything that she's ever directed, and I have a tenuous like relationship with roles that she's played. Like specifically, I really don't like her as Claire in the Jurassic World movies.
I don't like Claire as a character.
Yeah.
I think she
Yeah, she played. You're right. That's very true. I don't like Claire so much that even though I can say, well, that's Bryce Dallas Howard doing a good job acting, Devon.
right,
It's
right.
like I don't give a frig.
Yeah.
She's a
No,
terrible
you're not-
character.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, like she's definitely on-screen stuff has been really kind of hit or miss for me as well. The role that I think of when you talk about Bryce Dallas Howard is Gwen Stacy in Spider-Man 3, Raimi's Spider-Man 3, and I just don't like that movie all around. So like it does her no favors.
What a waste! What a waste of like everything.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. No, I'm a big Bryce Dallas Howard fan because there has been some directing stuff that she's done that I've been.
Yeah, like it made me want to look into her career on that side of the camera more. And then like the jerk line from my mother, well, she learned from the best. And I'm like, Tom Hanks?
Oh,
I can play this game all night, Ma.
Oh,
I know who
man.
her dad is. David Howard, right? David Howard is
Yep,
Bryce Dallas
David Howard.
Howard's father.
So we talked about weird games, man, but we got to do this. We're getting to the end of the episode, and I need to know. But I'm very, very curious to hear what your game of the year really
Okay.
was this year.
All right, so-
Because I think I know, but I don't know.
Okay, so two things. First, I'd like to do a little PSA. And this is a PSA that is also related to stuff that I did over the past week. And that's, we did a little adventure. And our adventure started at the Dartmouth Mall in Massachusetts. And there's a GameStop in the Dartmouth Mall. Well, the Dartmouth Mall is the Silver City Galleria. I should probably call it what it's actually called. It's also not the Dartmouth Mall. It's in Taunton. The Dartmouth Mall is a different mall. I just have been spending so much time at the Dartmouth Mall. I'm an idiot. All right, so let's take it back just to...
Ignore the last 10
So
seconds of audio.
I went to the Silver City Galleria, which is a dead mall by all accounts. And there's a GameStop in this dead mall.
It's a shame. You should have gone to that Dartmouth Mall.
Oh, I love that Dartmouth Mall. They got a movie theater there. I heard some really cool dude who has a podcast with his friend of 14 years saw Star Wars there.
Oh, man.
I'm the dude. Anywho, so we go to Silver City Galleria and they have a GameStop there. And I don't know if you've been following this, but I watch some things on YouTube and I read some articles where like GameStop is the sinking ship right now.
Yeah.
And my first experience with the sinking ship of GameStop was the GameStop at the Silver City Galleria because they were closing. So 30 to 50% off the entire inventory in store, which is a lie because clearance items are only 20% off. So it should say 20 to 50% off. You have to start from the low number, GameStop. You can't start from a middle number. But what am I talking? I'm just saying. And Dale, she already talked about it on the Sarah Report Jr., but I will mention it. She got one of the like classic Barbie select lines of the X-Men character for 50% off. So like that right there is awesome. Like because those are like $60 Barbie dolls just because they have licensing involved in them.
Yeah.
So that's the way to do it. Like there was a girl over there who was like buying 2 of each, and I'm like, you have the right idea. You have adopted a looter's mentality. All power to the reactor.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting Shovel Knight Treasure Trove on the Switch, new, wrapped, for the price it used to be physical. So
wow, I cannot believe that you that you got that in that situation, that you were able to get a new game like that.
I know, I couldn't believe it at all. Like I brought it over and I'm like, do you have any? He's like, I'll check. And he's like, yep, and it's still in the shrink. And I'm like, how? Like what is today? But the PSA is, if you have a GameStop nearby, go check if they're closing. And the secondary thing of that is, if you have any pre-orders at a GameStop that is closing, get your money back. Because they will take your money like a thief in the night.
Yeah, if that store closes, there's no getting your money back. Like, what are you gonna do?
They don't transfer it over to a different GameStop.
Yeah.
They put it all on gift cards for themselves, and then bring them back to corporate, so that they kept that money as profit. So that's just a thing to know. But also, get out to GameStops because you can get some crazy deals on games.
Good to know.
Dale got 2 Pokemon games for 3DS for $35 total.
Wow.
So
okay.
Just go out there. Look, if you have one that's, is in like a not high traffic area, then definitely check it out. Like if you have a dead mall nearby, like the Silver City Galleria, where all the stores are going out of business,
yeah,
check it out because you get some good deals. And now, with that PSA said, and just sharing that information with everybody, Devon's Game of the Year. I want to ask what you think it is. Like, how do you want to play this?
So there's 3 that I think I have it kind of narrowed down to.
Okay.
Looking at what has come out this year and what I would consider to be important to Devon, like there's 3 that I've really got it nailed down to, and I think one of them is definitely my favorite. So I'll work from the bottom up.
All right, good. I like this.
So I'm almost curious if somehow Pokemon squeaked in there with being Pokemon and whatnot. So that's like bottom of the 3. Second one on the list is I'm wondering if, being the bright surprise that it was at the beginning of this year and how long we talked about it, if Resident Evil 2 might have actually made it. But I'm pretty sure you're about to say Bloodstained to me, especially because of the reservation in your voice when you talk about how you don't know if you can call it or not.
So it's none of those.
All right.
But I'm happy that you said Bloodstained, because that means that I picked a game from like the echelon. Like, it's an okay game. It's not like I picked some game that, like, is a random game that nobody ever heard of. It's squarely in the same echelon of gaming as Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. So I don't feel bad.
I was pretty convinced that was going to be the one that you were going to say.
I got to tell you, if that game stayed the game that I got to play a week before its release, easily.
Yeah.
Easily. But the big problem is that as everybody has been talking about their game of the year and people have been talking about it again, I'm like, oh yeah, Bloodstained came out. The fact that I don't remember that game at all,
yeah,
like really speaks to it. Talk to me in about 20 years. Maybe it'll be my new Symphony of the Night. But I don't know. It's still not complete yet. And I have a real tenuous relationship with games that aren't complete after Shovel Knight this year. So also, spoilers, it wasn't the Shovel Knight, like, final update. Though I don't know if I could count that. Resident Evil 2, definitely a heavy contender. I want to play that game all the time. I loved that game. Definitely would be in, like, a top 3 situation. And Pokemon, it was good, but it's good because it's fun to play. It's not anything new or revolutionary for me.
Yeah. If you say Fallen Order, I'm going to be so mad at myself. Go.
No. Fallen Order was good. Fallen Order reminded me how much I love Star Wars and why Star Wars is something that I actually enjoy. Like I say, I don't like Star Wars. Really, what I don't like is the fandom of Star Wars. I'll be completely honest with you. Is that sort of what that comes to? And the movies, they're hit or miss. Like, luckily, Rise was a big hit for me. And I wonder if Fallen Order helped with that.
Yeah, right.
I can't believe the reason why there's reservation in my voice is because I can't believe I'm going to say the game that I'm going to say as my game of the year.
I'm wondering if it's even on my list, because I've got like a list in front of me of what I consider to be like important games this year, but now I'm wondering what you're about to say.
So Devon Decker's Game of the Year 2019 is River City Girls.
It's on my list.
Good. I'm glad that it's on your list.
Talking about River City Girls, and I was actually going to bring it up earlier because I was like, yeah, that kind of petered out for us, huh? But here we are.
And the reason why it's River City Girls is they still dropped it at the 1 yard line. That game is awesome, and then they failed to touchdown. by changing the ending of the game and making it so you're crazy stalker girls instead of, heroic girlfriends saving your missing boyfriends.
Yep.
That's a huge misstep. But I cannot deny the fact that in the 3 weeks after River City Girls came out, I cleared it 20 times. Start to finish.
Like, were you hoping it was going to change at some point? Like,
no, it's just like it was. Eventually, you get items that like make you fast and strong.
Mm-hmm.
So like, and you have to grind up money for other things to get the platinum trophy. So I'm like, well, I'll get those fast and strong charms, and then I'll play through it again. And like, I optimized it. Like, I couldn't speedrun it. I know that I couldn't speedrun it, but there are rooms in that game that I know like where the spawn starts. There's a puzzle real early in the game that is garbage. It's a garbage puzzle because it's hard. It's not a garbage. It's very well built, but you need to break into a security guard's house and steal his keys in order to get into the next place you need to go. And for some reason, he has laid out chew toys all over the floor. So the only way to get to him is to jump on his furniture all around his house.
Okay.
But there's just enough space in the entrance of his house where you can build up a run and you can jump right to him. And like, we're like, we can do this. We can figure this out. And watching myself do it, like, I felt good. But then Dale, she's like, I want to try. And she did it on her first try, like, just watching me go and go. Like, I have all these happy memories from River City Girls, even though the ending was so disappointing. But because that ending was so disappointing, Dale and I, one night, just, like, headcanoned the shit out of it to make it so that it would work. And that was fun. But the big thing is, I sent out a tweet of us playing Super Dodgeball in the River City Girls engine, because you can find dodgeballs and you can throw them back and forth at each other. And, like, I didn't really think anything of it when I sent it out. I'm not, like, a Twitter person. Like, I'm not getting retweeted all the time. I barely get likes, let alone comments. And for some reason, the art director of the game retweeted it and said, I was hoping someone would realize they could do this. And it was just like one of these things where, like, oh, I had this, it's like, this is a game I have a problem with, but now I'm like sort of having a conversation with it. And it's like, this is the stuff that matters. The ending of this game shouldn't matter. The game itself should matter. And it does. And it does to me. And I still, like, will randomly wake up to a like on that tweet that is now, God, 4 months old, and be like, that was a fun time. I could play that game right now. There are other games from 2019 that I enjoy, but I need to be in the mood for. Like, I want to play through Resident Evil 2 again after the announcement of Resident Evil 3, but, like, I'm not in the mood to do it. I'm not in the mood to solve the puzzles again. I'm not in the mood to look for my notes. So, even though I have some real problems with it, I think I gotta go River City Girls.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad. Like I said, it was on my shit list. It was on the list of games that kind of just disappointed this year, right after Marvel Ultimate Alliance and right above Untitled Goose Game.
Yeah. I mean, that game, I'm probably going to get it now that it's on PS4. Like, the thing keeping me from it was that it was on Switch.
Yeah.
And it's still only $15 till the 2nd. So who knows? Maybe that's what I'll do on New Year's Day. Not New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve, I don't know if this is going to happen, but this is what we talked about. I played Snow Brothers. You know Snow Brothers? You ever play Snow Brothers?
No. Okay. What the fuck is a Snow Brothers?
Snow Brothers is basically a Bubble Bobble ripoff.
Okay.
I don't know which one came first. They were both arcade games. But Bubble Bobble seems to be the iconic one. So, like, even though Hydrox cookies came first, Oreo is the established one. Right. I don't know if that's the case with Snow Brothers. But you play as two brothers, Nick and Tom, and their girlfriends have been kidnapped, and they could throw part of their snow bodies onto the enemies and encase them in big snowballs, and then they push them, into other enemies or into the wall to kill them.
Okay.
And that's how they're going to climb the tower and save their girlfriends. So one of the 200 games this year was Snow Brothers, the European-only release for Sega Genesis, because it's the superior version if you don't have access to the arcade machine. And I played it through with my friend Justin, and it was like 2 in the morning when we started. Like, we had already gone out and been drinking and exploring the world, and then we came home and we played Snow Brothers. Like, not in our right minds. And we built characters for Nick and Tom. And I'm not 100% sure, but keep an eye on the Stay Report Facebook page, Twitter page, and all that, because I think for New Year's Eve, we're doing Nick and Tom's Rockin' Snow Brothers New Year's Eve.
Nice.
And we're going to be those 2 characters counting down to the new year on a Twitch stream.
I love it.
So look out for that. Like, that might be a fun thing that we do. I don't know if it's going to happen. I really hope that it happens.
You got to keep everybody informed, man, because I'm having people over this house that I will show this shit to.
Excellent. The Snow Brothers, thank you. They're Romanian.
Nice.
As you would imagine from the term Snow Brother. Anything to add before we send it over to Will to say goodbye?
No. I mean, if there was anything else this year, did we ever get a Shenmue 3 eventually this year?
Yeah, Shenmue 3 did come out this year.
And then nobody talked about it.
Oh, everybody talked about it, but the language that came out about it was all negative.
Yeah.
The fonts were like very basic, non-dynamic. Like, for a game that was the most successful crowd-funded video game in like ever.
Yeah.
Like ever. That money certainly didn't go to the graphics or the game or anything like that.
Oh, that's gross.
And it's like very obvious that, and the worst offense of Shenmue 3 is, and I'm saying it like that because that's how I've heard people say it, I have no attachment to these games. I remember playing the first one as a kid and being like, it's cool that I have to have a job in this video game. But
this escapism sucks.
Like, that's a cool idea, but I don't want to do that. Like, it's a cool idea, but it's not. They were like, this is going to be the last one in the series. We're going to wrap it up. Even though we originally said there were going to be 17 games in this series, obviously that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So let's wrap it up in this one, and then you'll have a completed story. It ends with a to be continued.
Fuck that, man.
So,
wow.
Yeah, that's one of those games that there was a lot of talk about it when it came out, but then it all stopped when it was super negative. So that's fun. If you don't have anything else, what's something negative that you want to leave behind? Because we're going into a new decade.
Star Wars fandom. Can I just say Star Wars fandom? Can we just leave that shit behind? Can we leave the Sonic effect behind? I want that to be a dead thing. Like, the demanding that our movies cater to us in such a fashion that it disrupts the artistic vision of whatever that movie is supposed to be. Can we just not do that anymore? No matter how bad a thing is, I want to trust it.
I support that. I mean, not that you need my support for that, but I used to love this feeling when something happened in a movie and it felt like it was for me. If it was, because it was like it was a surprise that, like, oh, that thing that I thought would matter in this movie actually matters to someone on the creative side. That's cool. That's not cool when you're demanding that it happen.
Yeah.
That's cool when it's like serendipitous. It's not cool when it's Twitter fueled anger. And then people lose their jobs after working like crazy to make those changes.
Yeah, or you suck the magic out of an entire film by proving to everybody how fake everything truly is because they send an update to that film not less than a week after it comes out. Ugh.
Yeah, I'm okay with leaving the Sonic effect behind. I'd like to just say negativity in general. Like, can we just, as a human race, divorce ourselves from being negative about things? Like, I'm not saying don't be negative, right? Because that's not a utopia. That's Brave New World. We take drugs to feel better bullshit.
Right.
But, don't dwell in negativity. I'd like to leave that behind. I'd like to leave behind that negativity controls and consumes you aspect that has really become chic in the last couple years.
Well, and malicious negativity, like negativity with a sharp edge to it.
The negativity where, like, I'm so negative, I need to make you feel negative too.
Yeah.
Like, let's have negativity stop at us. Something bothers us, we let it bother us, and then we find something that's not so negative. That's what I do all the time. I'll throw my phone away from me because I'm fearful that the negativity will flow through me.
No, it's back.
It's back, Siegen.
Oh, God.
Good. All right. Yeah, so that's it. So if you'd like to talk to us about anything, if you'd like to share with us your game of the year for 2019, you can find us on Twitter at The Say Report. If you'd like to talk to Siegen directly, because I know he's got some ideas that he'd love to share with you, he can be found at Siege versus the World.
And if you want to check on any updates about Devon's New Year's adventures, because we all need to know, you can find him at Devon D. Decker.
All right. So, Will, for the last time this decade, take us home, bud.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Siegen Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.